22 7B203, Irrotational Vortex Spin Angular Velocity Lattice Magnetic Formula Wow Seti. There's the alien radio signal. And just so you know, it says it's a long video, so I had to keep all the data together. So it's probably going to be for 7 to 10 minutes maybe. Spinning vortex, angular velocity, super lattice crystals, Higgs electric field, electron holes, vorticity fluids, argon gas, neutrinos, UFO engine core nodes, proton ring energies, quantum transport, logic gate functions of a ship, formulas, line 22, wow data. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Okay, so we have line 22, 7B202, which was about dark matter sphere nodes, Higgs boson particles, metals, formula, wow Seti. It's about the bendable metals and how we can get them to flex and bend. Okay, January 27, 2014, quotes from a blog. In a massive fluid that is rotating like a rigid body, the vorticity is twice the angular velocity vector of that rotation. This is the case, for example, of water in a tank that has been spinning for a while around its vertical axis at a constant rate. It's kind of like you're stirring it with a straw or a spoon. When you stir your sugar into your coffee, you think about that little vortex you're creating. The vorticity may be non-zero even when all the particles are flowing along straight and parallel path lines. So your sugar is bouncing up and down and going around, okay? If there is shear, that is if the flow speed varies across streamlines, for example in the laminar flow within a pipe with constant cross-section, all the particles travel parallel to the axis of the pipe, faster near the axis and practically stationary next to the walls. The vorticity will be zero on the axis and maximum near the walls where the shear is largest. Conversely, a flow may have zero vorticity even though its particles travel along curved trajectories. An example is the ideal irrotational vortex, where most particles rotate about some straight axis with speed inversely proportional to their distances to that axis. A small parcel of fluid that does not straddle the axis will be rotated in one sense but sheared in the opposite sense. In such a way, their mean angular velocity about their center of mass is zero. The example flows. Here's a rigid body like vortex. Now unfortunately it's not doing what I want it to. If you go to the blog, you'll see how it spins and it does different directions, okay, and it shows you on there. So parallel flow with shear, and then we have irrotational vortex, and then absolute velocities around the highlighted point. Okay. And it looks like they angle up. See, here they're going straight ahead, and here they're angling up. And then they're going, what are they doing in this one? They're going straight again. So they go straight, look up. It's like you look up with your neck and you look back down again, okay? Relative velocities magnified around the highlighted point. Almost looks like a pinwheel, doesn't it? Vorticity at zero. Vorticity at zero again, so you have the bottom one's going to the right, the top one's going to the left, and then vorticity at zero equals zero. Then you have these ones facing each other. This one's going this way and that one's going that way. So these ones go to the inner part and these ones go to the outer part. My thoughts. When I look at the diagram, it reminds me of the geomagnetic storm cells that show up on the intellicast maps. If you don't know what that is, that's a weather satellite map. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, geomagnetic storm cells, on my blog it shows you. I have a weather blog that I do. I should have put that in here. Here, I'll show it to you real quick. Called Tropical Storms, Hurricane Predictions Idea Girl. There's this one here, if you want to see what a geomagnetic storm cell is, or we can go to Idea Girl Severe Storm Prediction Mornings on WordPress. And we go over to, there's a little box on the right here that says search, supposed to. Doesn't have it, of course not. So I'll go to the categories, geomagnetic severe storm cell research. I did some research on it. So, let's see. This is going to take too long. hold on. I'll just do it at Google. Geomagnetic storm cells. And we'll do an image. There we go. So when you look on the intellicast map, you see these little green things here, see? And of course, this is all my data, because that's all that comes up, because no one else does this that I know of. So you see how these cells go different directions? This is the direction that they're flowing, and it has a little arrow showing you. So that's the area they're going to affect. So in this data, that's what I was talking about. Okay? So I studied their patterns. They communicate with electricity. So they, and how do I know that? Because when there's a lightning storm, they increase. Lightning storm. They start going in the same, well, you'll have to look at the research if you're really interested, but it's quite interesting how these cells communicate. Okay, they're cells and they communicate like our cells do in our bodies. They send signals to one another and mimic the wind speeds. They split into baby cells, which is what I call, they actually make babies. So they'll make a smaller cell, and then they'll teach that cell what to do. And it takes them 3 to 5 minutes to teach them. I mean, they're quick. So they split into baby cells and produce intense winds, rains, tornado cells, and hailstones. So yeah, they're not very good babies. Yeah, can you imagine your baby? No, never mind. Yeah, if you get a new puppy, you'll know what I mean. They chew your shoes, wreck your furniture. Yeah, you'll get the idea. You produce a little baby cell and you get a storm in your house. That's my, you'll remember that, right? That's funny. Okay, formula from the data. Mass, fluid, liquid argon gas, cooled plasma, ultra-cold rubidium atoms, spin p orbitals, 5 axial forces, rotating like rigid body crystals. Between 2 super lattice walls, electron holes, and Higgs boson particles with mass. We'll have charge carriers, electrons and neutrons. Vorticity is 2 times the angular velocity. It speeds up. The vector of the rotation, the water in vacuum chamber, tank spinning for time, proton energy rings. Well, around its vertical axis at a constant rate, a vorticity non-zero when all particles flowing, liquid argon gas, cooled neutrinos, cooled atom cloud, and long straight linear parallels, parallel path lines, visible light, hadron jet streams, 2 muons, 2 protons, and 2 phonons. Add shear. Flow speed varies across the streamlines, diffraction, and laser beams. Obsidian mirrors, pencil beams, electron ribbon laser beam crossing one another. Laminar flow within pipe, proton ring of Tevatron energies in constant cross section. All particles travel parallel to axis of pipe, faster near axis, practically stationary element for 0. No mass in particles next to the superlattice walls. Between the electron holes and the lattice walls, where the proton energies will spin in and out of the electron holes. Vorticity 0 on axis, maximum near walls, where shear is largest. Add Higgs mass particles here. Conversely, flow the 0 vorticity, though particles travel along curved trajectories, laser beams of visible light, red, blue lights, jet hadron streams. Irrotational vortex, where most particles, proton energy rings, rotate about some straight axis. Add 5 axial forces. The speed of light inversely proportional to distances to that axis. Small parcel of fluid, water molecules, does not straddle axis, will be rotated. In one sense, sheared in the opposite sensory symmetric particle states. Their neutrinos mean angular velocity about their center of mass is 0, minus W, and minus Z bosons. Weakly interacting particles, atoms coupled, add ligands, binding coupling energies, positive and negative spinning p orbitals. This will equal quantum dance, qubits, and logic gates. Brain of the UFO engine drives through quantum transport in space. The rigid body-like vortex, or the UFO ship, the parallel flow with shear, liquid argon gas, cooled plasma. Shear equals laser beams diffracting in crisscross patterns with mirrors on either side of the 2 superlattice walls. This will create the irrotational vortex, giving absolute velocities around the highlighted point. Nodes on each part of the UFO engine structure with magnetic forces of 4 quadrupole magnets and 2 monopole magnets forces. Relative velocities will be magnified around the highlighted point, proton ring energies, then magnified with Higgs electric field around the visible light laser beams, diffracting from each node into the crystals and superlast walls, electron holes, and we're almost done. Quote from blog: another way to visualize vorticity is to imagine that instantaneously a tiny part of the fluid becomes solid and the rest of the flow disappears. If that tiny new solid particle is rotating rather than just moving with the flow, then there is vorticity in the flow. So it shows a downward movement. The vorticity tensor measures any tendency of nearby world lines to twist about one another. If this happens, our small blob of matter is rotating, as happens to fluid elements in an ordinary fluid flow, which exhibits non-zero vorticity. January 27, 2014, my thoughts are in the alien math equation, line 17T4b. Quote from Wiki: the viscous stress tensor is a tensor used in continuum mechanics to model the part of the stress at a point within some material that can be attributed to the strain rate, the rate at which it's deforming around that point. January 27, 2014, my thoughts. Deforming around the point of the node, the bendable flexible metals, can change shape where the viscous stress tensor, the continuum mechanics stress point within the materials. And we're going to cross-reference formulas lines 1 to 27 in the WOW data for the metals super alloy mixtures to find out what we're supposed to use to do that. And the data will continue in the next video. Thank you for watching.